I'm Dr. Fiona Lovely, and this is the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast. I'm taking the taboos of menopause and perimenopause and bringing light to the dark. No bullshit, no shame. It's time for us to gain a new paradigm in female health, out with the old and in with the new, and I'm bringing fresh perspectives from someone in the arena. I've been practicing women's health for nearly 20 years, and I'm spilling the tea on what it means to live at midlife, knowing that the best is yet to come. I'm sharing my Gen X approach to living through this transition. Sassy, a bit sweary, and always honest. Tactical tips and instantly usable information is my aim. I hope to make you laugh and that you learn something new that helps you embrace the change. Together, we bring power to the peri. Onward to the podcast. Hello, listeners. You know I love to bring purpose-driven, brilliant women on this show, and today's conversation is no exception. Today, I'm talking to Tina Anderson of JustThriveHealth.com. Tina Anderson's journey into the world of health had a unique start and some unusual turns. She began her career as a trial lawyer who specialized in settling cases by bringing both sides together, a personal passion of hers. Once her second child arrived, Tina left that high-stress job behind so she could focus on her family. Luckily, she was able to use her considerable legal skills to point her career in a new direction as the in-house counsel for a family pharmaceutical company. But what Tina saw there made her change direction again. Frustrated by the many abuses in the pharmaceutical industry, Tina turned towards the field of natural health and found her life's work. She channeled her energy into learning all she could about disease prevention and good health maintenance. That led her to discover the importance of gut health and how connected and crucial it is for overall health and wellness. To share her discovery with the world, Tina, along with her husband, created a unique supplement that contains the superior probiotic strains of renowned researcher Dr. Simon Cutting. By promoting gut health and probiotics, Tina shares her passion for wellness, helping others live their best physical and emotional lives. Now, I started this conversation by asking the question that we all want to hear, which is, tell us what it's like to be that pharmaceutical industry insider and then walk away. And Tina shared her experience with me. It was a fascinating discussion. As always, we got deep on the topic of gut health for women at menopause, and the importance of taking the right probiotic. Now, I talk about probiotics on the show lots of times, but never quite like this. This was the masterclass on probiotics and what you need to know, what you should be taking. And, we talked a lot about stress and resilience. That's an important part of what happens to a woman's health at midlife. Is the stress can feel overwhelming, which can cause us to lose our resilience. And what role does gut health play in all of that? Well, it turns out your microbiome is a big, big part of that. Resilience, stress handling, immunity, really even mood. Isn't that great? The thing I hear when somebody says our gut health is connected to our mood, oh, I know I can pull the levers of gut health and improve my mood. That's a fairly, I don't want to say it's an easy thing, but the solution is elegant there. We know what to look for there. We need to look at the diet and lifestyle things that we are taught many different ways to look at, and we can pull those levers. We're in charge. We don't have to have someone prescribe for us or someone doing testing, etc. Sometimes those things can be really helpful. But there's lots of things that we can do to improve our gut health now. And Tina and I go deep on this conversation. I know I learned a ton. I'm going to turn off the mic here and go take my probiotic ASAP because I know with renewed vigor just how important that is. So please take a look at Tina and her husband's company website, which is justthrivehealth.com. And I will leave that in the show notes for you as well. Before I say another thing, I just want to say, get ready to take notes. Tons of information in this episode. I loved it. I love meeting with Tina. Can't wait for her to come back on the show in the near future. So get ready to take notes, but here's a word from our sponsor. As we move through menopause, it's no secret that our bodies change. As women, we are navigating the ups and downs that come with aging, especially when it comes to hormones. That's why I'm really excited to share something with you that's been a game changer for me. I've been using the bioidentical hormone creams from Hormone Solutions by Karen Martell, and they are fantastic. They are clean, over-the-counter, and contain USP-grade hormones, which means they are high quality and effective without any harmful ingredients. The best part, you don't need a prescription to get them. Karen's creams are designed to help with the symptoms of peri and post-menopause, and I have noticed a real difference in how I feel using them. The Estro 2 Rejuvenation Cream in particular has been amazing for my skin. Not only does it help with the hormonal chaos of menopause, I've been using it as a face cream too. Research shows that estrogen on the skin can reduce fine lines, shrink pores, and even helps to build collagen. It's like a mini facelift in a bottle, and it's an affordable way to support your skin as you age. Karen's products will help you reclaim control over your body and help you look great. We deserve to feel good as we age. If you're ready to take back control and feel your best, I highly recommend trying Karen's creams. They come with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's nothing to lose. You can even take 10% off your first purchase with the code LOVELY. Please go to karenmartell.com/shop/ to learn more and make your first order. Of course, as always, I will leave the links in the show notes. Thanks, Karen. I'm Dr. Fiona Lovely, and this is the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast, and I'm excited to bring to you a new guest today, Tina Anderson from justthrivehealth.com. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fiona. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Well, you and I are set to have a really great conversation. I'm quite excited to meet with you today and talk through some really interesting parts of health, especially health for women at midlife. But before we get there, I have to ask about your story. You were a big pharma insider, and now you're someone who teaches us to take control of our own health. Dish on that, please. Dig in. Tell us what that was about. We're dying to know over here.
Yeah, I know. I have such an interesting journey in my career. I started out in litigation. So I'm an attorney, and I was in litigation working crazy hours and spending way too much time at the office. And then I started having children, and I wanted to be home with them a little bit more. So I was fortunate to go into a family pharmaceutical business where I was able to, I thought at the time, deliver life-saving medications. And I was in this industry with my husband also. And we were like, this is great. You know, we are really helping change the world. We'd go to these pharmaceutical conferences, and I'm like, my God, look at all the research they're doing on curing cancer and doing all of these things. And I just thought this was so great. And I was drinking the Kool-Aid, and I thought it was wonderful. After being in the industry for several years, we started to see a lot of the abuses in the industry. You know, we started seeing the overprescribing of medications. We started to see, you know, obviously we saw the commercials all over our news. I'm in the US, and all the commercials of the pharmaceuticals all over the news or all over the TV. And then one of the things that really stood out to us was we had won a bid for one of the largest hospital systems in the country, in the US. And my husband actually was talking to the rep at the manufacturer of this particular drug. And he's like high-fiving my husband, Billy, and saying, like, this is great. Oh my God. And you know what my job now is? My job now is to go to every cardiologist in this hospital system and lower the number that they would prescribe this particular medication for. In other words, prescribing the medication before it was necessary. And it was kind of, we had seen a lot of the abuses in the industry already, but then we started noticing it. We saw it with our own family members. We had a family member who she started on one medication because of stomach issues. And then she started taking a medication for that. And then it started causing joint issues. Then she was on another medication for that. And then, that started causing skin issues. And the next thing you know, she was on half a dozen medications and not getting any better. And eventually, she didn't make it. She passed away. And so I think we just started seeing all of the abuses out there, both in the industry, but in our own personal lives. And we actually didn't live our lives very pharmaceutical anyway. My parents are immigrants from Europe, and we just grew up very naturally anyway. And it was the way we were raising our kids, pretty naturally, not as naturally as we eventually raised them when we really became enlightened over this journey. But it's been so gratifying to see the changes that we've made in people's lives. We are very deep thinkers. We are really focused on mindset, and we read a lot of Wayne Dyer and Norman Vincent Peale. We are huge Wayne Dyer fans. When he passed away, we felt like a member of our family had passed away, but his message to us was always like, you need to do your life's work. And we were not doing our life's work. And so we decided to leave our roles in the pharma world and start a supplement company. We wanted to get into the health and wellness space. We wanted to empower people, and we wanted to focus on root cause medicine. And, we're not opposed to pharmaceuticals in certain situations. We recognize their importance, for an accident, or you need antibiotics in the most, necessary times. But we just wanted to focus on root cause and getting to the bottom of an issue and empowering people to take control of their health. So we dove in, and I'm telling you, being at the right place at the right time, my husband's naturopathic physician, and being at the right place at the right time, we were able to license these particular strains of probiotics that created an entirely new category of probiotics in the space. So we were not the conventional type of probiotics that were out there. We created something called a spore-based bacteria. So we created this whole new category. It was an uphill battle. We were, disruptors in the market, but boy, it has been the most gratifying career journey I've ever been on. That is for sure.
Oh, I love that story. I know I as a chiropractor, I've, been aware since really early on in my career, and probably when I was still in school, that there's a lot of questionable practices, questionable in terms of health in pharmacy, instead of more policy based and profit based, and less about actual health care. And what you've just said confirms that. And I think it's really helpful for people to understand that, because if I don't believe the doctors are necessarily going along with this thinking they're quite ignorant. But I remember, I get to talk to a lot of really interesting people. And I can say that I get to hear the most interesting parts of their journey after we stop the recording and we continue a conversation. And I was speaking to a surgeon in the United States a few years ago. And what he told me was that the OxyContin thing was happening at the time, and he was just a resident, and he was seeing, the reps coming in and saying, you need to prescribe this sooner, and you need to take it to higher doses. And he was just trying to do his best job being the resident and listening to what his superior had to say, but his superior was too busy to ask too many questions of, so he just went along with it. And now he feels sick about it. Mm-hmm. So that's ultimately what you're saying here, is that if we get the drug pusher is making for the parameters of who prescribes this, and that's a problem all the way around, isn't it?
Yeah, well, medical schools are being funded by big pharma. That is such a conflict of interest, and it's unbelievable. This is where our doctors are being taught. And, I agree with you. Doctors are, first of all, very intelligent people. They're very compassionate people that would dedicate their lives to helping people feel better. And I think, but they have been taught that from what my understanding is, they've been taught it's sick care. It's not health care. It's not they're not nutrition classes in medical school. They're not talking about root cause or whole body health. They've become so specialized on one particular aspect of health, and they're not looking at the whole body, and they're not looking at the root cause at all. And I think that's really the biggest flaw in our medical system right now, is that we're not focusing on the whole body and on the root cause and nutrition and things to, get into out of an inflammatory state. We're all in this, our society as a whole is in an inflammatory state, and we need to start getting out of that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, and I think medicine does disease management really, really well.
Yeah.
But if you're going to the doctor to ask about health, that might not be the best choice.
Yeah.
What I like to say, and listeners of the show have heard me say before, you can't take your Maserati to the Ford dealership and expect that they're going to manage it in the same way.
Right.
You have to think about where you're asking those questions of. And you're right. As of yet, although I understand things are changing, which makes me very hopeful, the doctors aren't in med school. You're not getting trained on nutrition, and it's so important. It's like an airplane mechanic not understanding what kind of fuel you put inside the jet makes a difference in how it flies. So it's a really, really important subject. So let's dig in on that. So when I was probably my first year of practice, I remember hearing about the microbiome and thinking, what? We're full of bugs? Turns out trillions of them. Of course, we know so much more now, 20 years later. But, tell me what you learned about the microbiome and what kind of made, because it's a really mind expanding thing when you get into the details of it.
Yeah, it is. The Human Microbiome Project was launched, I think, about 2005, taught us more about the gut than we ever knew before. And the microbiome is basically the totality of organisms that are living in and on us. So bacteria, fungi, parasites, all of these, it's an ecosystem, and most of which are found in our gut. And even though we have the skin microbiome, lung microbiome, there are different microbiomes throughout our entire body, but it's mostly found in our gut. And what we have found is that it's hard to find any non-communicable disease out there that's not associated with some type of imbalance in our gut. So it's just, we've always associated our gut health as like gas and bloating and diarrhea, constipation, or like acid reflux, some type of like digestive issues. And those are certainly examples of when you have some gut dysbiosis going on. And those are pretty obvious answers. But what we're starting to understand now is that, we have a mood issue, we have anxiety or depression where, we can't handle stress well. That's all related to our gut health. We know now that cancer, diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune issues, all of these types of disease states are directly tied to our gut health. I mean, it's hard, if you think of anything, rheumatoid arthritis to acne to Parkinson's.
Yeah.
Yes, you Google those, how are they related to gut health? And you will find studies and articles on that connection. So it is really where we need to start with health is we need to start with our gut microbiome and taking care of our gut microbiome, because it is hard to find any disease that's not associated with it.
And it's as you said, it's far reaching, and we have to remember, like, there's the vaginal microbiome, there's the microbiome inside our nasal passages, like they're literally everywhere. And as I like to talk about on the show, think about it like a garden that you cultivate, that you tend, and that means everything from your thoughts, which do influence the gut bugs. As a brain specialist, I like to talk about the gut-brain axis quite a bit, and vagus nerve, and what we eat, how that communicates through the vagus nerve from the gut to the brain. There really is a very deep connection there, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and certainly what you've learned formulating these beautiful probiotics.
Yeah. Well, I think even going back is, we've got all of these trillions of microorganisms living on us, and yet we are living in a world that is so offensive to our gut health. And it's why we're seeing, in my opinion, why we're seeing this rise in disease out there, why we're seeing a rise in children with allergies and, autism and autoimmune issues, is because we are living in this world that is so offensive to our bacteria. We are 10 times more bacterial cells than we are human cells. I mean, that is crazy to think that it's our bacteria that is dictating so much of our overall health. And so now we know that yet we're living in this world that we have antibacterial hand soaps and hand sanitizers. We have antibiotics that are not just antibiotics that we take that are kind of given away like candy, but we have antibiotics that are, in our food supply that, we're eating meat products and we've got antibiotics that we're consuming there. We have pesticides that are sprayed all over our produce that are just wreaking havoc on our guts. So we are living in this world that's so offensive to our gut health. And now we know that our bacteria is really dictating our health. So it's kind of an uphill battle. There is, there's hope, and I don't want to ever paint a bad picture, but I also want to, really highlight the problem that we have is that so many of these disease states are really fundamentally caused by an imbalance in our gut. And then when you talk about going through the menopausal transition, I mean, that is probably the most critical time, other than maybe being pregnant, to be focusing on your gut health, because we just know that our microbes are being destroyed just by the whole process of menopause.
Mm-hmm. I have a neighbor who loves to wander around in the summertime with his bottle of Roundup spraying on the grass.
It's like,
get this, his wife has MS.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
He should know better. And much as he literally comes around to us and says, "Can I get your dandelion?" No,
we like our dandelions.
Yes, the bees love them. Leave them alone.
And people are put it on on the grass, and they're letting their dogs out there. And you wonder why, we have actually created a pet probiotic because we've seen this, all the human issues that we're all having, the pets are having too, because they're, going to the park, which are, sprayed with Roundup, and your people don't realize what they're doing. I mean, obviously your neighbor would never do what he's doing if he had known what the damage that these pesticides are doing to our gut health.
Absolutely. To go back to what you said about we've got 10 times as many bugs as we do human cells. My favorite thing to say on that is this: are we humans having a bacterial experience or bacteria having a human experience? Which I love that conversation because it's, a little bit of existentialism on the show.
Yes.
It's so fascinating to think about it because I remember, or quite often I see patients go, "Well, you mean you're prescribing me a probiotic for my brain health?" Yes, I am. "So you're telling me I need to eat bugs for my brain health?" Yes, I am. Yes, exactly. And so we have all these communication channels throughout the entire body. And as you've said, our mood is very much affected by what's happening in the gut. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think this is something that people really have trouble understanding, because it's like you just don't think about your mental health as anything to do with your gut health. But when you think about it, think about when you are excited about something, you get butterflies in your stomach, or when you're nervous about something, what do you have to go to the bathroom more often? I mean, it's like, of course there's a connection. And we know now that 85%, if not 90% of our neurotransmitters, so our serotonin, 95% of our serotonin, which is our happy hormone, is actually produced in our gut. Dopamine is produced in our gut. GABA, which is our calming hormone, is produced in our gut. So all these critical neurotransmitters that are really impacting how we're feeling and what kind of mood we're in are being produced in our gut and not in our brain. And that is really fascinating to people. And then, of course, we know there's the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve is the largest nerve in the body that's connecting from our brainstem down to our intestines, and there are signals being sent back and forth to each other. So, early on when we started this journey, I'd be on a podcast and people would say, what can I do to help my gut health? And I would always, as one of my, tools in the toolbox, is meditate or do something that calms you down. Because when you are calm, your brain is sending signals down to your gut. Mm-hmm. And then the reverse is true. If I'm experiencing anxiety or depression or whatever, try to take care of your gut health, try to eat healthier and, take a certain probiotic and do all the things that are gut supportive so that the gut is sending signals back up to the brain. Mm-hmm. So it is a fascinating connection between your gut and our brain. And we now know the research is so clear that there is, this connection going on between the gut and the brain.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's so one of the things I do in my professional work is I work with athletes that have had a concussion. And there's a few things I recommend in terms of supplements. There's what we call the Dr. Lovely trifecta that goes out the door to every single person with a concussion, and probiotics is one of those things.
Yes.
So, but not all probiotics are created equal. And you have formulated something called spore-based probiotics. Can you talk about that, please?
Yes. So spore-based probiotics are a completely different category of probiotics. So the majority of probiotics on the market that we will find, whether it's in the grocery store, health food store, online, are made up of lactobacillus and bifidobacterium strains. This is what you'll find in 95% of the probiotics on the market. We intentionally did not use those strains in our product because we know that they're very sensitive organisms. They have difficulty surviving that trip from when you swallow it through the acidic environment in the stomach and into the intestines. We have to remember that our stomach is very acidic. It is meant to be the gastric barrier. It's meant to protect our intestines from pathogens that we get from food or, other, places where we would get pathogens. Our stomach is there to protect us. And this is why so many probiotic strains have difficulty getting to the intestines. And most of them will get there dead on arrival. The spores have this shell around themselves. They have this, and this is not something that we've engineered. These are an endospore shell that's a hardy shell around themselves. And that shell allows it to get through the gastric system and arrive in the intestines. And when they get to the intestines, they recognize the intestines as their home and they take that shell off. And that's when they go into their live vegetative cell state. So they survive 100% by the time they get to the intestines. And then, different than other probiotics, is they stay there for about 21 to 28 days where they're making this true change in the intestinal environment. And so they don't pass through, like food would just pass through your intestines. These other conventional probiotics that you find would just pass through. These actually stay there. These spores stay in the intestines for about 21 to 28 days, where they're attaching to the intestinal cell wall. They're actually getting rid of the pathogenic or the overgrowth of the pathogenic bacteria. They're helping our good bacteria come back to life. So they are a very, very effective approach to to gut health, in that they are surviving, one, and two, they stay there where they're making a true change. And that's where I love to use the garden analogy that you use. So I'm going to borrow that from you for a second. But we think of like this garden, and you compare the garden to your intestinal tract. And you've got in your garden, you have like good plants, but they've been stepped on and trampled on. And then you've got weeds that are taking over the garden. And that's what happens in a dysbiotic or an imbalanced gut. And so what our spores do is they go in, they survive, they get to the intestines, they get into that garden, and they have the ability to attach to the soil. And then they have the ability to help get rid of the weeds in the garden. And then they have the ability to help bring those plants that have been stepped on and trampled on back to life. And when they do that in the intestines, they're getting rid of that overgrowth of the weeds or the pathogenic bacteria. They're helping bring those good bacteria or back to life. And they're helping create diversity in the gut microbiome, which is the key. That is the gold standard, to have diversity. We can't have diversity by throwing a bunch of different type of strains in the gut. That it doesn't make any sense. We have way too many different types of bacteria in our gut. The more effective approach is to take our own bacteria that's there and help flourish it and help it thrive in your gut. So it's a very, very, very effective approach, and why we see such profound results with the product is because it's going in there, surviving and making a change in the gut.
Yeah, and you're just talking about the Just Thrive probiotic itself, which is the spore-based probiotic that you're talking about
Yes,
specifically.
Yes, the Just Thrive probiotic. And it's actually a Just Thrive probiotic and antioxidant, because one of the strains in there actually is called HU36, Bacillus indicus. And that strain is so revolutionary because what it does is actually help combat that oxidative stress that's going on. So we know it's producing antioxidants and helping get rid of that oxidative stress that we are dealing with in our intestines. So we did a double-blind human clinical trial. It's the first of its kind. It's the only one of its kind that I'm aware of that actually we tested for leaky gut. And the researchers believe the reason why subjects had such success on the spores is that they actually had that HU36 strain in there that allowed it to help combat that oxidative stress.
That's huge. That
Huge.
huge. I mean, as a clinician, I can tell you leaky gut is absolutely a very real problem for probably at least 50% of my patients, if not more, myself included. I know listeners of the show have heard my story, but about 11 years ago, I discovered I was gluten intolerant. Now, I have both of the celiac genes, but I'd never got to the point of actually expressing celiac disease. So I stopped eating gluten right away, and I've been gluten free ever since. But one of the early things that was very helpful for me was using a spore-based probiotic and Saccharomyces boulardii as part of it. And that has been so helpful for me. And now I see you've actually got a blend that you've created the thing that I had to take, 3 or 4 different things of called, I think it's gluten away. Is that what it's called?
Gluten away. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Gluten away. Yep.
Yes. Can you talk about that formulation for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to go back to the leaky gut. You had said about 50% of your, like the
Yep.
population. Well, the study that we did, or the University of North Texas did the study on our spores, and they actually found that it was they took 100 college students. These were healthy, really, no issues at all, no symptoms, no medication, nothing like that. 55% of young 20-year-olds, late teens, early 20s, 55% of them had a leaky gut and didn't realize it. And so that's what's so scary, I think, about leaky gut is that it's like that drippy faucet. There's no symptoms, you have this
Mhm.
little drip, and then one day the sink overflows and you have a
Yep.
huge cascade of problems. And that's exactly what happens with leaky gut, and why I'm so passionate about people taking a probiotic, a spore-based, particularly probiotic, like you would take a multivitamin, because you
Yes.
have to be, it's protective. It's like insurance on your body, because our gut lining is being attacked every day by all the things we talked about: antibiotics, pesticides,
Mhm.
stress, all the things that we're dealing with on a daily basis are attacking that gut lining. And we have to be protecting it and helping it rebuild itself, and that's what the spores have been shown to do, actually help stop those LPS toxins from seeping into the bloodstream.
So interesting.
Yeah. Oh, and so then the gluten away, I'm
Yes,
sorry. So
it's
yeah, so
okay.
the gluten away has this enzyme in there called tolerase G. And tolerase G actually helps break down the gluten to like non-toxic levels. And it's really fascinating. We recommend people take it before, maybe 5-10 minutes before a meal. And it's had, we never say, oh, take the capsule and eat something has gluten in it. No, it's more for the accidental exposure to gluten.
Mhm.
I don't have any gluten intolerances that I'm aware of. I don't notice it anyway. But even if I am going to have some gluten, I definitely take the capsule before, because I do sometimes do that. Even
Yes,
though gluten is not good for any of us, even though I don't have an intolerance for it, we know it's disruptive to that gut lining. So
absolutely.
if you're going to have gluten, even if you don't have an intolerance, you definitely want to take the gluten away.
Yes, absolutely. It's one of those things that, as you said, you said it so beautifully. You just have this sort of leaky faucet, and then all of a sudden something breaks. For me, I turned 40 and all of my joints hurt. I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. That still is my number one symptom if I get an exposure. So here's the thing: people aren't thinking when they have something like brain fog or leaky
Yeah.
gut or mood issues, they're not thinking gluten. If you have
No,
diarrhea or constipation, maybe people are thinking gluten, but that's
no.
just not what we were not taught. Gluten is a toxin that can touch all parts of the body. It has a particularly strong affinity for the cerebellum and the brain.
Mhm.
So, and that's just, even though that research has been out for decades, rarely is it discussed in medicine, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
again, you and I, we know that there are so many things that we can do to advocate for ourselves here, taking the good probiotics, as we've talked about the spore base. Now I know to call it that. That's so
Mhm.
helpful for me because I can speak that language with my patients for sure. I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned stress a few times, and I know that the gut and gut health is such an important part of stress and building resilience. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, I love that you said that, building resilience, because that is all of our goals is to be resilient, because we are going to be faced with these toxins. We are going to be faced with stressors in our lives, and we have to build a resilience to these things. And, and that's why having our gut healthy is going to be, we are going to be able to deal with stressors better. We actually launched a product called Just Calm, and we don't have to get into the details of it, but it's something called a psychobiotic. As you could tell, we're disruptors in the market. My husband and I started this business. We are self-funded. We have no investors. We do this all on our own, and we get to answer to ourselves, and nothing we bring to the market is anything that we don't take ourselves. Or our kids, or my parents, my in-laws. I mean, we're very adamant about that. So we are super, passionate about making sure that people can handle stress these days. We're faced with it all the time. So this psychobiotic strain is actually a strain that helps with external stressors. So we talked about how our gut itself is helping us deal with mental health issues, because we know that serotonin is produced in our gut, dopamine, GABA are produced in our gut. But we also know that there are external stressors that we are faced with on a daily basis. We just can't get away from it. You get cut off at traffic, you have a list that's too long that you can't get done. You have to pick up the kids, you're running around, all of those things that we're dealing with, emails, and we see a message on social media that upsets us, whatever. We're dealing with it, but we really, really have to learn how to handle those better. And that's what this psychobiotic strain that's in our Just Calm product is really helping with, is helping us deal with those external stressors. And that's really exciting. But we do know that where you start fundamentally, foundationally, is our gut, because we know that these neurotransmitters are being produced in our gut, and because there is that gut brain axis with the vagus nerve.
Mm-hmm. Menopause skin. Nobody's favorite part of the transition at midlife we call perimenopause and menopause. If you're noticing fine lines, wrinkles, or sagging skin, maybe more texture during your menopause, I have some really exciting news for you. Menopause can deplete your skin's collagen, speeding up the aging. But here's the news. Vitale Skincare has built its entire line on the power of GHK-Cu copper peptides, a proven ingredient that signals your skin's stem cells to produce new and healthy collagen. My personal favorite, Vitale's Restorative Skin Cell Serum. I love how it rejuvenates and restores my skin from within, revealing a firmer, more radiant glow. Want to experience this transformation for yourself? Head to vitallyskincare.com and use the code LOVELY at checkout for 20% off. That's vitallyskincare.com, VITALI skin, SKINCARE.com, code LOVELY. Because with Vitale, youthful, vibrant skin is just a step away at any age. I remember so many years ago reading that there was, as you've just said, there were more mood-based neurotransmitters produced in the gut than are actually produced in the brain. And I remember reading that in a groundbreaking book many, many years ago called The Gut-Brain Axis, and thinking, that's revolutionary. Why are we not hearing about that?
Mm-hmm.
So, because as you said, when you're thinking about resilience, when you're thinking about stress, you're not thinking about gut health. You're thinking, how do I get rid of my shitty boss, or my relationship is a problem, or I need, I can't pay the bills, or, whatever, not to be trite about it. But I mean, these are the real things that we are faced with in our lifetimes, a lot of people. So how can you help? I always feel so silly saying, well, you've got to reduce stress. I mean, it's probably the number one thing I talk about on the show, because, okay, well, fine, but we hear that from everybody, but what can you actually do for that? And most of us, especially the listeners of this show, just have way too much going on in our lives to add another thing in, like a holiday, or a spa day, or more exercise, or whatever it ends up being. But if it's something easy that we can incorporate into what we're already doing, like the probiotic you were speaking about, then I'm all for it. I love that. That's so good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like the probiotic is one tool in our toolbox. I never look at it as like a magic pill, although so many people, so many of our customers have felt that way. Like it's been life changing. That's always what we hear. It's like it's life changing, and it is. But there has to be other life changes that you make to really see a true difference especially when it comes to stress. I mean, I'm a great example. I mean, I am an entrepreneur. We started this company 11 years ago. I had at the time, I still have three kids, but I have three kids that were in high school sports, playing three sports, 4 years in high school. They went on to play in college. I don't miss my kids' games. And I'm like, I'm running this business. I have a very close knit, tight knit family. I'm very involved with my parents, my sisters, my in-laws. I mean, it's like I was spread so thin. And finally, and I'm taking my probiotic every day, and that's really important. But you also have to take, you do have to sometimes make some big life changes, and I like control, and I'm sure
You're
that's
a
a good
control
thing. Yeah.
enthusiast, a control enthusiast,
Enthusiast,
Tina.
yes. I did you notice I stopped saying, I didn't say
Yes.
freak. I said, so I like control, but I also feel like that, you have to sometimes let that go. And we started hiring a team, and then I let them, kind of take more responsibilities off my plate. And then that's when you do have to make big life choices sometimes. And because, your health is so important. And I do feel strongly that the probiotic is foundational and a huge, huge tool in our toolbox, but it's not the end all be all. We have to make choices in our life. And I just want to encourage people to like not wear that stress badge of honor, that we
Oh,
are so accustomed to being. I mean, it's amazing. Like I find myself doing that, I'm talking to my girlfriends, and it's like, I find myself writing, reiterating a list of all the things I've just done today. And it's like, it's really like, who cares? I mean, I have a
yeah.
friend who plays tennis and golf, and I'm like in awe of her because it's like, she's enjoying her life, and not everybody can do that financially, but I think we have to make some sacrifices in life to make sure our health and our mental health and our stress levels are really optimal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love what you just said about wearing that stress badge.
Mhm.
It's that whole, we get sucked into this whole, if I've got a lot of stress and I'm super busy, I'm important,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
exactly,
That is
exactly.
BS. And I want to know more about your friend that does that golfs and plays
Yeah,
tennis. She
I
sounds like
mean,
a fascinating person.
she's amazing. She's a wonderful human, and it's like, and I love it. And some people might judge her that, oh, look at her, and I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
Just we gotta. She worked really hard in her life, and now it's time. I mean, yeah, time to relax.
Yes, good for her. Good for her. I love it. So I want to come back to this idea of the psychobiotic.
Yes.
So let me just be really clear here. So, what you're saying is taking a probiotic to make its way into my gut is going to help with my mental health.
Yes. So the probiotic alone, the spore-based Just Thrive probiotic and antioxidant alone, we know is helping support our neurotransmitter production, our dopamine, our GABA, which is our calming hormone. We know that already. So that's that part of it. And why that's so critical is because we know that when you have a leaky gut, LPS toxins seep into your bloodstream and they cause an inflammatory response by your body. This chronic inflammation is going to all different organs. Well, that inflammation likely oftentimes goes to the brain, and that creates inflammatory response in your brain. And that is one cause of, and in addition to the neurotransmitters being produced in our gut, but now we also could have this inflammatory cascade happening and going to our brain health if you don't seal up the leakiness of the gut. So that's one aspect of it. And then a psychobiotic, the other offender to or contributor to our inflammation in the brain are those external stressors that we talked about, the getting cut off in traffic, getting into a fight with a loved one, all those things. Those we can't get away from. This psychobiotic strain, which is another product that we carry called Just Calm, so that's different than the probiotic, but this is a psychobiotic strain called Just Calm. That strain has been studied in 8 clinical trials showing that it lowers your perception of stress. It helps actually change your brainwave activity to get more into that theta wave state, so that flow state that we're all all striving to be in. It doesn't make you tired. It just makes you less wired is really what that psychobiotic strain does in our Just Calm product. And it's been game changing. I mean, when we launched about 2.5 years ago, it unfortunately it sold out right away because it's such a relevant topic right now. People are just dealing with stress, and a lot of the things that they're trying they're not having success with. But again, when you get to the root cause and you replace, your body with this critical strain, bifidobacterium 1714, you start to see, the magic happen.
Fascinating. So we talk a lot about mental health for women in perimenopause and menopause transition on this show, and we know that a woman in the perimenopause transition is twice as likely to experience depression and anxiety that she maybe never has experienced before, and traditionally, the treatment for that has been an SSRI or some other pharmaceutical. But ultimately, I love what you're saying about let's get to the root cause of this. What I'm wondering now is because we talk about it in the context of hormones more than we talk about it in the context of neurotransmitters. And what I'm wondering is if the cause, because we know that leaky gut and other gut issues come up at midlife for women, it's part of the cascade. But I'm wondering if the causative factor of the mental health changes is more related to gut than it is related to hormones.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you think about it, your gut is, I mean, as we age, our gut is more and more compromised. And yet our neurotransmitters are being produced in our gut, like we talked about. So we really have to be, this is why, I mean, anytime I'm listening to or reading a book on menopause or listening to a podcast on menopause, I feel like all of the menopausal experts are just talking about gut health so much because our estrobolome is the subcategory of the microbiome that's actually helping us metabolize and detox our hormone or our estrogen. So it's so important that we're talking about that we're focusing our gut health during menopause. I mean, I hear this time and time again. I feel like when you're in your menopausal years, if you could handle balance out your hormones, whether that's with HRT or whatever way is working for you in perimenopause, and if you could handle or if you could get your gut health in check, you're like golden. I mean, you are on such a wonderful path to health because we have to be taking care of our gut health. And it's why I always have said, psychiatrists and they've had their hands tied for years because they've been prescribing these SSRIs, anti-anxiety medication with really not much success because they haven't been focusing on the right spot. They should have been focusing on the gut. And that's what we're finding now and why you start to see people in the menopausal state where they are now the menopausal transition where they are now, having more mental health issues because their gut is being compromised. So I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I think, more coming on that. I'm sure I'll be thinking about that one for a while. But to go back to inflammation, which you talked about, I mean, we know that inflammation enters the body, starts in the gut for sure. And as you said it, when you have a leaky gut, a leaky brain is what follows. So those two things work together. If I have someone in the office that's asking me about, could they be early mild cognitive impairment, which is otherwise known as early Alzheimer's for some women, dementia, etc., which who isn't terrified of that? Who hasn't had a family member that has gone down to Alzheimer's or dementia? Typically, it's women that do by quite a long shot. And what I'm wondering is this whole conversation needs to shift really from looking at just the brain and the neurotransmitters, but actually going right into gut health as well. And this whole leaky gut conversation, it's so powerful. Tina, I love this because we have control here. This is not something we have to go to a healthcare provider or a prescriber for. We literally can take care of it ourselves. We can order these supplements online. The probiotics are available online. It's just thrivehealth.com. And thank you very much for the 20% off promotion code, which is lovely for the listeners of the show so that you can try it. I can tell you that since I have been taking your probiotic, in particular, the Just Thrive probiotic, I feel different. And I've been taking probiotics for 20 years. There's
Mhm.
something very different about this probiotic. It's not just the one you're getting off the shelf in the drugstore.
Yeah, no, we hear that all the time. Like I've been on probiotics for years, and you know what? I want to just piggyback on what you said about like empowering the audience and really empowering yourself to take control of your health. That is my why. My why is to empower people to feel better. And I'm so passionate about children, being a mom of three, and of course women in this my our age group, going
Yep.
through the transition. I'm so passionate about it, but I always like my competitor are not other pharmaceuticals or other supplements. My competitor is big pharma. And I would like urge people to like really think about, like, I'm not saying get off your pharmaceuticals, but think about why you're on them and getting to the root cause of it. I think that is so important. And thank you for your kind words about our product. That means a lot to me. And like I said, I'm always just like, I want people to go on the journey of gut health, and then hopefully they will come to our product and see the results, but go on the journey, the broader journey of gut health, because it is so empowering to start to feel better. And I think like I said, our spore-based probiotic is a very powerful tool in the toolbox, but there are other tools that will also help. But thank you for your kind words about the product. That means the world to me. It's what we hear all the time, and it's why I keep doing what I'm doing every day.
It's awesome. And my listeners know I have high integrity with things that I talk about on the show. It's stuff I take myself, and it's important to me that it feels like it's working, it feels like it's beneficial, it feels like it's effective, etc. And so I will gladly endorse this product as something that I will be taking for the rest of my life. Hopefully, it's a long life.
Yes, that's right.
So where can people find out more about you, about the company? Please share your social media, your website, etc. with us.
Yeah, so our website is justthrivehealth.com. And on Instagram, it's Just Thrive Health, and Facebook, Just Thrive Health. So pretty easy.
Awesome. I like that.
And we
So
also invest a lot in our blog because we are so passionate about empowering people. And so we have a blog post, and we have blogs that are really empowering, all backed by research. We also have health coaches on our team that are product coaches that could talk you through the products and all that. But I would always recommend that foundationally, everyone starts with a probiotic. A lot of times people want to start with the Just Calm also because everyone's stressed out. And that's fine if you want to do that. But I'd always recommend first starting with a probiotic, then introducing maybe a couple of weeks later the Just Calm product. And then, we have a whole bunch of very research backed products that are very specific to gut health. And you could talk to our product coaches. We really want to be there for our customers.
that's amazing. Thank you for being a model of what conscious entrepreneurship looks like for us, because I think us out here, we're the customers. We're going, hey, we want to take something that actually works but is well supported, and that seems to be getting less and less common. The world is weird right now, Tina. So thank you for not being
Yes.
that kind of company. I so appreciate it. But I noticed, so whenever I have a new patient taking probiotic, I recommend they do a half dose for a couple of days, because you will have the die off quite often, and that can cause you to have some, let's say, not out in public kind of things happening. um, but as I said, I've been taking probiotics for 20 years, and with this one, I noticed I couldn't take it every day at first. I was like, okay, something is really different here.
Yes.
And so I'm now taking it every day. But at first I was like, there's just, I think somewhere on the label it says, give it, take it with a
Yeah.
big meal and take it every other
Yes.
day.
Yeah, so we recommend that you take it slowly. You try titrate up to like, one capsule a day. I mean, a decent amount of people actually could start with one capsule a day and go every day, one capsule a day. But we always recommend starting slow. You could either take it every other day, like you did, or you could open the capsule and mix half of the capsule with like food or drink, water. It will be fine, and take it like that and take the other cap the next day, either way. But eventually you want to go up to one capsule a day. It's literally like the easiest thing to do, one capsule a day with food. And the reason we say to take it with food is we study this. Most probiotics will tell you to take it on an empty stomach because the pH of your stomach is higher, which allows for greater survivability. We've tested our strains and they with a pH of 1.3 and survived 100%, which is the typical pH 1.2, 1.3. And we actually, our strains survived 100% even in that low pH. And we also found that when you take it with food, those strains proliferate in the presence of food. So we know that like we actually get more for our money if we take it with the presence of food. And you know, like a nice protein fat meal would be great to take it with. So it's super easy. 1 capsule a day with food and go slowly. Great point. Because it always bums me out when somebody like starts to have a die-off reaction and they're like, oh, this one's not for me. And it's like, oh no, this one's definitely for you. It's getting rid of that die-off, the pathogenic overgrowth. So don't get scared off by that.
No, just plan when you start taking it that you can be close to home if you're going to start allowing it.
Right.
It's true. That is such a pro tip. I love it. And I love that you guys are studying the things around this that really matter, like what can make it more effective. Like more of that, please.
Yes. I mean, that's what we do. So many studies. We have like 8 or 9 clinical trials, double-blind human clinical trials. I mean, again, unheard of in the supplement space.
Indeed. So I think I'm going to, I mean, I've got so many things going through my head right now, Tina, and I think all of it's just sort of processing this great information. It's so useful. Thank you so much for coming on the show. The website is justthrivehealth.com. Thank you again for sharing a code with my listeners, which is lovely, and it's 20% off of your probiotic order. I have a final question I ask all of my guests, and it's been a pleasure to learn from you today. I've learned a ton. Thank you so much for reminding me about these really, really foundational things around gut health and the human microbiome. Fascinating. So
thank you for having this show and this platform to educate women and empower them. So thank you, Dr. Fiona.
Thank you. It means a lot to me to do this show. So thank you for saying that. So the final question is, knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self?
Oh boy, what would I tell my younger self? I would tell my younger self to slow down. I would definitely say to slow down. I've always been, had a lot of energy, accomplished a lot. I definitely would say to slow down and live in the present.
Amazing advice. Not easy advice, but amazing advice.
Yes. I mean, my God, I could go on. That could be a whole other show of what I would have told my younger self. But it's amazing how age gives us wisdom. So.
Oh, that's the truest statement. It really is. Thank you for the time today, Tina.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fiona.
You're welcome. The information and other content provided in this show, or in any linked materials, is not intended and should not be construed as medical advice, nor is the information a substitute for professional medical expertise or treatment. We are doctors, but we aren't your doctor. Seek your doctor's opinion. If you or any other person has a medical concern, you should consult with your healthcare provider or seek other professional medical treatment. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something that you have heard in this podcast or in any linked materials. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The opinions and views expressed on this page and in this show have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, health practice, or other institution. Thank you.